Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the chapter 15 of the Secrets to Increasing Your Power, Wealth, and Happiness. It's so great to see you here, starting with the webinar on time. So just to let you know that if you want to share a win in the Facebook chat, that is available. And let's start as we usually do with this event. Who wants to start sharing some wins before we start officially? Okay.
Yeah, I'll share my win.
Hey, Corey, please.
Kickstart. So just to share my wins of co-processing on the business course that we're currently doing. I know some of the guys are on this call as well. So that's my win. Co-processing, learning how to process, going through the drills, feeling what it feels like. And yeah, that's my win. Big win.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, great win. Thank you, Corey. Thank you for sharing the call. Good. Who else wants to share some wins? They can be any wins. Good. Paul, please.
Thank you. I wanted to report that out of the blue last night, my daughter, Krista, who I processed once, like a week ago, I think, and we processed at her choice the clean slate process for presence. And out of the blue last night, she said, oh, and this is in her comment is in the context of right at the moment, she's actually teaching 2 master levels online college courses, and she's middle of writing a book. But out of the blue, she said to me, I wanted to tell you that the processing we did was very powerful, that it helped me a lot. And I just wanted to let you know that. And she really wants to do more processing. That was just one processing. And in particular, the word that she did was the clean slate for presence. And Camilo, you sent me a couple additional articles about presence, which I forwarded on to her, and she loved them. In particular, these 2 articles, what my daughter teaches is Vedic philosophy. And those 2 articles that you sent are pure Vedic philosophy. I mean, basically one article says, be in presence when you perform action. And that's essential, that's the heart of the Veda, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, establishing being, perform action. And then the other one you sent was essentially that you only have control over your actions. You don't have control over how people respond. And that's also pure Vedic knowledge. You don't have control over the fruits. You only have control of your actions. So make sure your actions are righteous and appropriate for you and for others. And then let the results be whatever they are. You have no control over that. So anyway, that's my win.
Wow, congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
Great insights there. So nice that you are getting people back to talk with you because they got very good results. That is when you know that your processing is working. And so great job there, Paul. And also for the curious ones, article that I share with Paul, it is about the benefits of being present, and it's in our website. So if you just want to check that out, I just put it on the chat. So that's great. Thank you, Paul, for sharing. Who else want to share some wins? They can be about processing, about your week, about your business, or whatever. Alexi, please.
Yeah, I had a win, which was just I had a really excellent conversation with my mother last night, which was not formally processing, but was pretty much informally processing. And it was very helpful to me, and had feel a lot of clarity and very centered ever since that conversation. So that was definitely a win.
So great. Thank you for sharing. It's a good daily wins. Daily wins. Oh, anyone else want to share some wins? Ah, Terry, please. Welcome to the call.
Hi, thank you. I'm good friends with Paul, and I love his family dearly. And one of my issues has always been technology. So the last few weeks, been trying to get through on the computer, and I think I have some things worked out. But if you ever don't see me, I guess it has to do with one of those issues. And as you know, I've had some issues in the past with some dyslexic issues. So simple things are very challenging. Paul forwarded me some information on some people who were dyslexic and who had some amazing changes. And one of the things one of the things that I realized that was great was one of the gentlemen that was talking about his issues said he didn't read his first book till he was like 36 years old. And it surprised me that some of those challenges in reading and technology were that prevalent with other people. So that in itself was a big win for me, along with working with Paul in the program. To see me take something that was such a big block for me, even it's kind of like felt like being at the starting gate of a race and tripping just as you get started. So now I feel like I've all of a sudden I've caught up and I've passed a few people. That's what the joy feels. So it's a big yes for me, and I'm very grateful for Paul and his family. And I get to see two nobles in one time here. This is also a beautiful sight. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, for sharing. A great win. Thank you, Paul, for working with Terry. That's amazing. So good. Anyone else wants to share some wins before we start with the studying the chapter number 15? Okay, so going 1, twice, 3 times. Okay, let's start with the topic of the chapter and then name the policy for positive life force particle recovery. So, okay, so there is one of the topics of the book that explains what are, but in this chapter in particular, they are explaining what is the optimum setup in order to free life force particles. So that's why they start explaining what happens when you don't have life force particles. So loss of power, energy, strength, cleverness, ability, and all these things that are positive. Normally, when we lost life force particles, that's what happened in our lives. But what happens when we free them? That's also explained in this chapter. And one thing, just to highlight, is that normally as we start recovering life force particles, we realize that there's a lot of responsibility on our side. But free life force particles for us is we realizing what is there and freeing the life force particles on our own. That's to understand that whenever we are freeing life force particles, it is ourselves that we are doing the job of freeing life force particles. It is us that know about where we trap those life force particles, what happened, when it happened, and the more truth that in order to free those life force particles, the more life force particles that we are able to free. But okay, before continue with the topic, I would really like to hear some of your questions found by reading this chapter. There are just 2 pages, but let's see what are your opinions about this chapter. I just want to hear some move from that. So anything that comes to you as you were reading the chapter, or any questions too?
Yeah, Carmelo. This reminds me of a bulletin I was just rereading about the fragility of ascension states. And it was about ascension states and how that it's an act of, as Alan says, an act of sabotage to put oneself amongst the untrained, unprocessed, in order to keep your life force particles. So there becomes, once you know this information, a big responsibility to where do you put yourself and in what environments and what people, because it becomes our responsibility to look after them. So when I read this chapter, it reminded me of that, and how, you know, it says towards the end of the chapter 15, that we should never waste our time on people who are unworthy or who would seek to trap our life force particles. And yes, there's a lot of truth in that, because they're what creates our future. And you know, if our life force particles become trapped, then we can't do as much. So it's a kind of self-preservation. So it's a weighing up, you know, what environments do we put ourselves in, and do we have the team, you know, by our side ready to process us if we do, you know, slip down the zone. So that's what it reminded me of.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Yes, that's an important point there. So as we start learning this technology, and I'm saying it like by my personal reference, is that you go, okay, I have to help this friend that is down. You go with all your tools, trying to help them, and then you are more buried than them. So so yeah, it's funny how he mentions this at the end of the chapter, that make the competent more competent, because as you apply this technology in people that is already competent, you will see that your returns are bigger than if you try to somebody from the bottom of the red zone. So especially at the beginning, for me, it was I was trying to help like okay, this friend that this will work for them. And what I found is that sometimes they for them is harder to understand the book, the technology, in order for them to understand, in order for them to really put them in a good position to start winning. So yes. So one point here is, if you have great friends that you can help, go for those. They will understand the technology better. They will make more of your wins, and will also help you in order to help themselves. So that's just my opinion. Anyone else wants to share something connected to this first part of the chapter? Yes, Jorn, please.
Yeah, for me, it's like continuing what you said, like makes the competent more competent, that it's going to be an easier way. And especially this, I realized when COVID started, which is a year ago or something like this. So that the level of competence also might vary to the times. Because in my point of view, for some people, it's for me now, they are much harder to reach than 10 years ago, because there's so much pressure and so much stress out. So it remind me, this chapter remind me, let's like, okay, focus on the competent, but always make a check where the competence level from this people actually is, because it might vary. As I said, it's like if tomorrow everything is over and everything is fine, I think there are more competent people outside than right now.
Yes,
So yeah, that I was
Question.
thinking.
Nice. Good. Yes, competence level may vary as you move forward and the game changes and different situations comes to view. So yes, competent people can get buried in the red zone because of a change in their game, COVID, these kind of things. But you can also see the trends. For people, will be good for you to also find out what you can help them with if they are searching for your help. But and here comes the second part of the chapter, that it says that like the different policy, like the policy that you need to have in place in order to process somebody, which is all these, not alcohol, not hypnotism, so not drugs, not enforcement or insistence or suggestion. which sometimes like that happens as you, okay, you know this person that is competent, so I will allow him to get to know this technology because I know that they will get a lot of wins. But we start insisting, and sometimes that can be counterproductive. So, okay, anything else that you want to add? Paul, please.
Thank you. As I was reading this part, I was reminded of an analogy that my friend Terry gave the other, a week or so ago. We were talking, and this is, I guess, in reference to the idea that our first responsibility is sort of to enlighten ourselves, so to get ourselves out of our own hole. And Terry had the analogy as sort of like when you're on the airplane, they talk about, oh, when the oxygen things come down, put it on yourself first, you know. And the reality is basically it only takes like 8 seconds of depressurized cabin and you can just go unconscious. So you need to get yourself back together. If you start focusing on your kids and stuff, then you're all going to be lost. So the first responsibility is to yourselves and get yourself enlightened. But in this chapter, he goes on that the techniques are, you know, obviously there's very powerful techniques for yourself, but then he's mentioning essentially a strategy for how to expand beyond yourself. And that is what we should do is focus on the competent. And that's the point that you were emphasizing as well. And he even highlights that. I mean, it may put it in bold print, but I was sort of keen on the very last line where he talks about really the vision is to have the whole planet unlocking all trapped life force particles. And to me, that's the highest level of responsibility. It's not just a matter of yourself or your friends or the people who are competent. It's enlightening the world. It's creating heaven on earth. And that's the vision that Alan has, which he doesn't often say in some of the introductory texts. But to me, that's the big picture. That's the big dream, the vision. And you know, I enjoy that aspect of Alan. This isn't just about some process that helps people. It's for transforming the world.
Wow, thank you, Paul. Yes, so good that you mentioned this. There is a chapter that mentions what is the mission, and so good that Alan remembers the mission here, because yes, that is the ultimate goal of processing, like being able to process around you so they can also help the people that they have around them, and to have this change of total change for the better, for so that's good. Thank you very much, Paul, for sharing that. Okay, anyone else wants to share something about the chapter and maybe comes to you?
Yeah,
okay. Corey, yes.
Yeah,
please.
Camilo. Yeah, it just reminds me of how, especially in the UK, as far as alcohol is concerned, and I've become more observant of how people use alcohol, and I often find that people use it to try and, you know, like Alan says throughout the book, people use it as a substitute for life force particles, and I find that oftentimes people who have a habit of using alcohol, often if they're in work mode, they can't break out of work mode unless they have alcohol. It's like they're stuck in an identity, and the alcohol gives them the ability to transcend maybe their work identity. So when I heard this or read this many years ago, I began to really understand what part alcohol plays, and, you know, in my own life, and, you know, my experiences with alcohol and what it leads to. But it also ends up re-trapping life force particles because you're not totally aware of what's happening. And I've heard many stories of people doing stuff that they later regret because they've been under the influence of alcohol, because they haven't understood and they haven't been totally conscious. So alcohol basically disinhibits you. So it allows you to do what you maybe wouldn't do, but also maybe what you want to do but wouldn't do. So, you know, that bit is key for me. And it's also being well fed. If I'm hungry, then sometimes I get hangry. So being well fed is a very good idea. It's kind of like the setup for processing is a setup for also living life. That just makes sense to me, you know. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Corey. Amazing points here. Yes, if you keep this policy for your life, going to bed early or at least having enough sleep, not drinking alcohol, not enforcing things or that kind of things, like it will really help your life to be much more clean and also useful for you. So that's a great point. Yes, another thing that he mentions here is that the client must be fully aware. Like it's not like the client to do something they don't want to do, or trying to make the client force into the session, like, okay, this is good for you, or no, like they must have full responsibility about having a session, about being there, about being totally in place in order to get the benefits of the session, and they know about their life, what they need to handle. So giving full responsibility to the client, that's also mentioned here. So, okay, any other comments connected to the chapter that you want to make before we move on? Nice. Al, please.
Camille, this isn't really about the chapter, but you seem, and I'm not sure if it's me or if everybody is hearing this, but you're breaking up. Your connection doesn't seem to be as good as some of the others sound better. I don't know if there may not be anything you can do about that, but I've been noticing that.
Okay. Others too. Okay, so I think those are my headphones. So give me a second. Thank you all for.
Well, I don't know if it's your headphones or if it's the Zoom connection or what, but
Good. Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Oh, that sounds a lot better now.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yes, Thank you all.
Más mejor.
Mucho mejor, sí, más mejor. Gracias, Al. Do you have something to add? Like, yes. Now that you are on the spotlight.
I mean, this is a win being here today. I mean, I've been talking with a lady originally from India, but we've been doing a lot of this stuff regarding the, being present, recovering life force. It's kind of a two-way process, but it's it's mutual. I mean, she's benefiting me, I'm benefiting her. I mean, which is, I guess, the kind of the point of the processing. And, she kind of, I mean, I have the idea about we should have a paradise on this planet right now, and, like Alan used to say, he wants to, or he feels responsible for clearing every case on the planet and all that. But it's going to take some help, and, but it's a good idea, because we do have the potential to, bring everybody up to, like you say, you don't want to start with, you want to start with someone that has enough awareness and enough presence to be able to make some gains. But I guess, it works to where they can, potentially help people and help bring everybody up, but, it's a win being here. That's one thing.
Thank you very much, Al, for sharing. Congratulations. Good. Okay, so we are getting to the end of the call. So I just want to know if you want to share some wins related to this call, any other win that came to you as you were during these 30 minutes with us.
Yeah, I've got
Cody,
a win.
Please.
Yes, I'd like to thank Al for sorting out the sound. with your headphones. So thank you, Al. That's a win.
Hey, congratulations. Thank you all. You saved the webinar. Yeah, I finished this noise canceling thing. So thank you for helping me notice that. Okay, any other win that you want to share? Alexi, please.
I'll just say that I think I share that vision of trying to, create a ripple effect with processing and helping people to uplift everyone and uplift the whole world. And so I just was sort of a win having, just so many people on the call who share that same vision and are excited about it. And yeah, so it just makes me feel excited. Makes me feel like it's possible.
Nice. Thank you, Alexi. Yeah, it's exciting. Good, so good.
It's
Paul,
like
Paul.
yeah.
Yes, Corey. And
Go on, Paul.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Corey. Just one point that I found inspiring in relation to what you just said, Alexi, and Alexi knows this point, but I know that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who I value greatly as a teacher, he uses an analogy for enlightening the planet, because that was his goal as well. And he would like to relate his mission and his techniques to science. And he often would reference for like different analogies. For example, supposedly in producing a laser, normally you have photons of light from like the Thomas Edison light bulb. The photons are just going in all different directions. Whereas a laser, the photons are all going in one direction. And supposedly in creating a laser, the process is such where you only need to get a small percentage of the photons going in the same direction, then that level of orderliness affects all the photons, and all of a sudden they all align. And this particular principle of a small level of orderliness overwhelms the disorderliness. So to me, this relates like Alan talking about when you're doing processing. You don't have to do every negative experience that you've had. You got to get the major ones. And once you get those major ones aligned, then the other parts fall in line. In the same way in society, you don't have to get every single person processed. But if you start getting a small percentage of people who are operating with very high levels of presence, very high levels of being, and they're functioning on a very subtle, powerful level, that influences the entire society. So for me, these kind of analogies are inspiring, because the whole idea that suddenly we have to sort of like process every murderer, rapist, torturer in the planet and get them to enlightenment is like, well, that's impossible. Yes, it's impossible, but it's not necessary. That basically you just have to get as many people, a percentage of orderliness established, then it all will fall in line.
thank you, Paul. Great insight. Thanks for sharing. Yes, the ripple effect is so nice. Al, please.
Just to sum what Paul's saying up, to me, that's basically two words: coherence and critical mass. And, that's when we can get to that point, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I think there is a certain percentage that once you get there, then it starts accelerating, and, more people see that and they like it and they want it, and then it's a critical mass thing. And the coherence is like with the laser, all the photons and the wavelengths and all that, they're aligned. It creates a much more powerful effect. But good point, Paul.
Thank you, Al. Sharing. So good.
It reminds me of what Alan says in the end of the book. It says, join forces and help. We can all release trapped life force particles together. It will be a tough job, but boy, will it be worth it. So it's definitely a tough job, but like Paul says, we don't have to reach everybody. We just got to kind of get critical mass, and it becomes necessary anyways. In order to have green zone people around you, it becomes necessary to process. Otherwise, there's kind of nowhere to go. You end up bumping into, red and yellow zone people. So it becomes a necessary thing to do, a must do,
Mm. Thank you, Corey. Yes, that's amazing. So many good conclusion points. Okay, so before we end the webinar, I just wanted to invite you all. We are having an event next Wednesday at 10 a.m. I just added the link to the chat. So in this event, it's called the Sons of Life event. Some of you have already been there. It's an event where we practice presence. We also will give you 2 processes more in order to be in the green zone. For those of you that have been there, like it's like something that you may need continuously connecting to it as it will help you with all aspects of your life. So I'm sure that if you have been there, it will be also useful. So just to give you that invitation, is April 21st, Wednesday, 10 a.m. It's 3 hours. It's our Sons of Life event. And that's it. That is the concluding thought here and invitation. So thank you very much for joining the webinar and discussing with us the different parts of the chapter. I'm really grateful for all your assistance, and also congratulations for investing your time in yourselves. And that's it. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, and see you next Thursday, same time.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Camilo.
Camelo. Well done for hosting by yourself. Well done.
Yes, thank you, Camilo, and nice to see everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Y'all have a good day.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good week.